Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum salam.
We said that it's not just about parenting only in the West. Of course, about bringing up kids in the West, but many of these principles are generally applicable to all parents. And the first thing we have to realize is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have been given a duty, and it is important that we keep that duty in mind all the time. Oftentimes, kids, we're looking after their needs and so on, but what we have been asked to do is the mental and the spiritual growth of the child who Allah has blessed us with. And in this, mums and dads are somehow prepared. We're getting people saying that it's chopping up. So, Hasnain bhai, if, for example, the chopping continues, then we will have to look at another option, inshallah. With me. What I want to say is that in one hand, we are this stuff. At born, there is an overwhelming love and instinct to protect them that is found in the hearts of the parents. That love is something that is granted subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately. And so is a willingness by the parents to do everything they can for the child news about their life. But on the other hand, we may not be prepared by parents and logically bring a child into the world, but parenting takes some effort, skill, and responsibility that can be given to people with little or no training, actually. Generally speaking, you are. However, parents up and down the country, parents all over the world, bringing up with effectively parenting or not. So the first thing we've got to understand that it's just looking physically, but rather we have a duty of care by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise a child who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing is this rather odd term, cooking frogs. I don't know if you have that on your screen, and you might. The cooking frogs is, for example, I don't know about Canada and the States, but here in Europe, the French, for example, love frogs' legs, and they set a pot of water to boil, put seasoning in it, and they toss logs. Now, the interesting thing is, you would expect the frogs to jump out, but nothing. However, it seems that the frogs are supremely confident about the ability of their back jump 6 foot, and this pot is only 1 foot high. So they stay there, water. When the water gets very hot, the frogs decide now's the time to jump off, and their hope is that during that time, their back legs, which they had so much faith, the muscles have atrophied and they no longer can jump. They can only jump 1 or 2 inches. And the moment I got here a long time ago. The reason this I find interesting is that exact same what happens is when the kids are small, they do it. And we then imagine that we will always have this influence over them. So, and we say to them, sit down, they sit down. We imagine they will always sit down. Things begin to get hot. There are disagreements. There are differences of opinion. They want to when to exercise that kind of authority, we find that no, it doesn't work anymore. Have lost power. And are very worried, very anxious. What's gone wrong? Somebody come and fix this problem, or my donor. Very, very differently from what they were doing before. And by that time, it's a bit late, because now you are dealing with a young who has been brought up with a certain set of values and ideas, and then you cannot get back those years. So I bring this look. The time is quite limited. The window in which you can put into place those things that will pay is now, in the early years. I'm not sure how kids are, but the critical age is between 3 and 13. Doesn't mean that you can't do anything else after, but it certainly is much more in early years. And if you have a programmed, planned parenting strategy in years, find things. There are 2 or 3 things, though, that you need to be, that need to be. The first is people are sending messages that it's breaking up. Sorry, what I will, I'm sure the recording is available. Please bear with us. I don't think there is a problem on my side. Perfectly well. Inshallah khair. The first thing, brothers and sisters, which is parenting or effective parenting, is the relationship between the parents. You see, in their gaps into their relationships, and later on these leak into the relationship with their kids. But it's a Hassan Bhai just asked me to log out again. I just log out and try. Sorry. Okay, we try again. So the relationship of parents, the relationship themselves effect on how successful their parenting is. The attitude of parents as well towards faith, and lifestyle they have chosen to live, the kind of household it is, all this has a lot of effect on how their will perceive them. Remembering that kids obviously learn a lot more from what they observe than what they are told. And parents, they do as I do parents rather than do as I say, because do as I say will only work for a short while. You are telling them things which you do not believe in, which you do not practice yourself, then it becomes difficult with anything. So, for example, if you say to your kids, read the Quran, pray on time, much effective. See you read the Quran and you read with them. If they see that you take time out and make arrangements to pray on time, so many words, you've shown them that this is an attitude that you believe in. This is something you want to live by, and you in it. So it's very, very difficult when you are trying to bring up a kid, a model kid, but you do not want to do those things, but you want them to do it. You will soon find that they reach a certain age where they just will not do it. They haven't seen the value of it. They don't think you see the value of it. So why should they? So this is very important. Bring up the kids by all means that would be model kids, but show. And the third is, yes, parenting takes skill. You have to learn, and you have to learn by attending a course like this or others. You have to learn by sharing same age as yours. Don't ever be put off by asking people, how did you do this? How did you do this? There are what groups where moms, dads, parents share good practice. This is very important because the more skillful parent you be. So this is something that is very, very important. Without these skills, you may make mistakes which are difficult to unroll later on. You may take steps which are permanent in your kids, which is difficult to bring up. So I've just got a small list here of skillful versus unskillful parenting. This is a list from some of the cases that end up in juvie. Hopefully none of our kids will, in juvenile delinquent homes. Kids, when they are interviewed by their caseworkers, they come from a variety of families, not just broken homes. They come from these desperate situations, and when questioned, there are certain trends in the way that their parents behave with them. Some of them are curious. The first one is what I mentioned, that parents tell them to do one thing, but don't. They speak the truth, but they often are seen lying, and other such things with by kids. They are watching and seeing, and this is something that you need to be careful about. So you want your child to do something, show them they are doing it as well, right? You want your child to be religiously aware, show them that you consider these things as well. You tell them much after that, they will absorb it. The second thing is that these kids who ran into trouble, was parents making promises that they did not keep. Now this is very important. Sometimes to finish a small child, we make a small promise. To a bigger child, we make a bigger promise. It's very important to go through with these promises. And if you clean up your room, I will give you a treat. Do that. If you do this, I will do this. Only remember what you. A lot of times you'll see that in encouraging the kids, parents make promises. Later on, the kid does that. Whatever you want to do, whether it's stand still for an injection or whatever, but then you forget your part in it, but the child does remember. They remember in the next time you tell them that you will do this, they'll think to themselves, no, they probably won't do it. They should have absolute conviction that you will play your part if they play their part. Your promise is true. The third skill in parenting would be about showing love. It sounds pretty much straight, showing love, but we're talking about when the parenting starts to get a bit harder. You see, like sometimes I think parenting is like, if you like chickens. When they're very small, those little chicks are lovely to look at, very cute, a lot of all grown up, they're very beautiful as well. But in between, they are troubled. They don't look very good. They are happy to a point. Occasionally, you actually look at the child and wonder, why are they doing this to you? Why are they putting you through this misery of parenting gets very difficult at a certain age, but if you've started putting in things from an early age, then you can. So one of the things that these kids said was their parents were busy. They were either kids, and when they came home, they were too tired for them, and they left them to their own devices. You will find that children are left to PlayStation or whatever for hours on end. We're not talking about one show or two shows. We're talking about the longer he or she stays, alhamdulillah, the better I relax because I've had a long day. So what tends to happen is that love, time, and care is absent. And then what these parents did, apparently, is every so often make a grand gesture. Present guilt, unnecessarily expensive holiday or present in order to make up for the days and months of absence. It may once, it may work second time, but after a while, most of these kids just want you to give them a bit of their quality time, and you don't have any just after that. And also they complained that they would be allowed to do what they wanted, and then it would be brutal, harsh, probably due to the frustration of parents, but there was no consistent. It was out of the blue, suddenly somebody lost it, and then the punishment was harsh and so on. So the kind of things that to keep in mind, tweaking, constant showing attention, love. Both parents should take time. Yes, sometimes one parent is busier than the other, but they are looking after the needs of their kids, the individual needs of the kids. Realize is that kids, they need direction, and they don't need direction. It is clear. So, for example, oftentimes a parent will say to a child, "Why can't you be more tidy?" Tidy, actually, if you analyze it from the child's point of view, it really means nothing. He doesn't know what you want him to do. But it's something more like, don't you keep your room clean? I'd like you to see your stuff, orderly. That's a directive that they can follow. Why can't you? So why we're very general, vague statements that are you venting, but making no difference to anything that they do. The other thing is timing is critical. Bad timing will lead to a child misbehaving or acting up, where the saying better or presented better would make a difference. For example, you're out and the kids are having fun in the park, everybody's playing, you set your watch and you realize, hey, you've got to go, you've got to leave now because you're late for something else. If you tell the kids at that time, mind that there will be reluctance, there will be tears, tantrums, and then they will be in the car thinking to yourself, kids. I took them out to the park for an hour, and everybody's coming home in this kind of bad mood rather than being happy that I took timing. That's all. So you want to go home because there is a need to now leave the park. The simple way to do it works every time. You call the kids and say, guys, 5 more minutes and then we have to leave. 5 more minutes means the child should come to terms that fun is going to come to an end, but they can still have a little bit of fun before they leave. And then when you call time, you have a lot less reluctance, certainly no sulking afterwards, because you gave them time to process the direction that you did. I want to talk about 3 that it's very, very important to get this right. There is a common mistake parents make, and even if the children have a lasting stamp on them as they're adults. The first is mixed messages. By mixed messages, what I mean is having a different set of priorities from what is practiced, say, in the mosque or in the madrasa. Now, we go to the mosque, we hear the majlis, we hear the ayat of the Quran, we hear the hadith of Aimma alayhimussalam, we hear all this. When we come home, the children see that those same things are not a priority. In fact, generally considered as good parenting is if they get their kids into a good school, if they get kids into a program, material terms, these are seen as success. And if it comes to some sort of competition between or madrasa and something else that is to do with general material concern, you say, oh, fine, madrasa, or you say, fine, we'll not go to the mosque, or you say, fine, we don't have to do this particular activity, the other activity is more important. Now, what you are sending is a clear message to the kids that what is important is the dunyavi sort of like concerns, and what is secondary and to be done as and when we can is anything to do. Now, this is actually something that is coming from probably your own way of thinking, and the kids are absorbed. In time, you have kids who switch on a certain switch in their head when they're in mosque, when they are, and then they switch on their regular switch when they're out in the world. And it is seen as some sort of like double life already. The message has to be one, that look, guys, we have come here in this dunya to get closer to God. We need to and the Sunnah to learn how to be closer to God. And this dunya is in going to get closer to God. It has its demands on us, but we should never lose sight of the real goal. We should harness everything around us so that the good is in mind and something we are striving towards as a family, as individuals. That the kids are then they will soon pay lip service to religion, to namaz, to whatever else that God demands from us. They focus their energies and attention to dunya. So this is the thing that we cannot have these mixed messages coming in. If you want your kids to think is important, your kids to think that Quran and mosque and ziyarah and namaz al-Jummah and all these things are important, you have to leave them there and to sacrifice other things to get there. So you say to them that, look, we want to go to Jummah, means we have to this and the other to get there. We want to spend time to recite Quran, which means we have to say something, but this is more important. If so, think it's best for you as well. That is very important. That is something that it happens in a very subtle way. You know it. You know, there is dual personality in the people that we have raised. Perhaps dual personality in us as well, where we act in one way, in act in a total different way, in a different place, so that if someone who we know from the mosque was to see us at our place of our school, they don't recognize us as the same person, right? So we need to have this seamlessness in our that we can. The second thing that is problematic is communication. Again, communication, and on the flip side, good communication saves a lot of problems. Now, people might say, I communicate with my kids a lot. It's interesting that a survey showed that, I know it sounds like 80% of the communication between parents and children is one about telling them off, about why did you do this, or why didn't you do this? So scolding, and kids in conversation is, oh no, here we go again, mom's mad, dad's mad, they've called me into the, it's I didn't do. Now, in time, the natural need that their worries, their insecurities, their lack of confidence on certain issues, that will be shared with a friend, somebody else who they find has a listening ear for them, and you don't know who that person is. That person, for example, a teacher may be very empathetic, but they may not be of the same values that we hold. Thinking as we are, and they give them their ideas, but because they are there to hear them out, they will find that kind of place for our kids. Whereas you are frustrated at them when you see them out, don't make communication. We need to be able to talk, and we need to be able to let them talk. So, look, you know, anything that happens, have a moment in the day or a week to just, you know, have news. Like, for example, here in London at the moment, the big news is the RSC thing. The government is trying to agenda, which has become compulsory and really, frankly, has got some horrendous stuff that is taught. And this is something going on. So, you know, you might want to talk to your kids about that. You might want to talk to your kids about anything. What's happening in life? Really asking them rather than telling them. Oh, you know, you want to listen to them and let them speak so that they have listen to what their ideas are, even when they're very young. Even when they're very young, our opinions for them. So, making a decision to decorate the house. Okay, fine. So you bring in your child, he's 7, 8, 6, whatever. This house we're all living in now. We want to paint this room. What color do you think we should paint it? And he says we should paint it yellow. My wife are looking at each other and saying there is no way we're painting our house to look like a vanilla ice cream cone. But he says he wants yellow. He says, yes, I would. Now, don't say a yellow room won't look good. It's not your room. He's living in it. Go and do it. And every time he looks at it, even as he outgrows yellow and thinks, what a silly color, for sure is this painted because my parents listened to my suggestion. My suggestion mattered, and they actually want to. This kind of slowly it raises the kids to be more confident, to have a voice, no voice matters. The other thing you have to do is, when it comes to communication, your children stuff, like share knowledge with them. This is a mistake we make, that we want to share knowledge with them, that we live in. It is the era of knowledge. Knowledge is freely available. It is not far from fingertips. That we assume our kids don't know things, know them. So, mommy, where do babies come from? And ya Allah, you're 5 years from now. So she was caught on the hop. She didn't know what to say. So she said, yeah, so you came from that beautiful rose bush we have in the garden, the rose bush. So they said, you come from, mommy? And she said, in grandma's house there is a rose bush. I came out from. And the girl said, okay. And then a couple of months later, the on written that for 2 generations there has been unnatural birth in our family. The moral here, the children know, and it is unlikely that you are going to be able to tell them when you finally hear and say, okay, about the birth. 9 years old knows a lot, may not know everything and may not know it correctly. I have heard of it. When you want to discuss something, even when you want to inform something, find about, for example, homosexuality. Okay, because again, using that are not school kids and people working with schools, etc. What do you know? What do you know by it? What do you think if you knew somebody in your class, for example, their father was gay? We're talking about gay, but they might have a parent who is gay. It's not unusual here in the UK. So is it something you have an opinion about? So first and foremost, rather than you going into a lecture mode with them, you need to. It may be quite different, a lot less than you realized, and it may be a lot more than you realized, right? And so you have to then talk accordingly. The first thing is ask them, what do you know? And don't be scared of using this tool. It's tremendously effective. It is your family, whether it is something that is happening in madrasa, in school, in the press area. The first question, what is your feeling about it? Okay, and then start from there. The second is, do not assume that they do not have smartphone technology. The moment the child has access to the internet, the moment the child has access to read on their own, they have a little bit of everything. So the key parenting skill is not to add knowledge. The parenting skill is to how to that knowledge, how to use that knowledge, how to compartmentalize or contextualize that knowledge, what that knowledge means. So you need to change tack and begin to communicate in this way and become the person to kids whenever they're in doubt about something, whenever they have an opinion about something, they know that I can speak to mom or dad. It will be something that is okay to have a discussion with about. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is pay attention to the Just as you are getting on with your life, your child is getting on with their life. And that's because their most active and energetic time is in school. When they come home, they're tired. On weekends as well, maybe they have sports, they have the madrasa, they have different things. So you're not getting them at their best. Has taken its pound of flesh from them. However, their life is going on. They are growing. They're a human being. Their personality is forming by hundreds of influences, and you need to know what those influences can be. The kind of stuff they're reading, whether they're reading it online, whether they're in WhatsApp, whether they're reading it as books, the kind of stuff they're watching, the stuff they're listening to. Are they listening to music? If so, what kind of music? Right? If the kind of company they, this is important, right? Because you need to know not the parents of your kids' friends, of your kids, know your kids' friends. And the way to do that without becoming somebody who's a little bit uncool is to call them around. Encourage them. Look, you've got friends, let them hang out at home. I'll make some stuff, I'll get some stuff, whatever, and they can come and sit there. You can play or you can have a chat at home. Encourage that, because what will happen is and you begin to assess them, or in an unobtrusive way, figure out what they are. And if you see one of the kids in the way they talk, in the way they, then ask your son or daughter about them. Then what's this friend of yours like? What does he think? What does she think? This is very important. Impressionable age. They want to fit in. They want to be cool with the rest of the people. And sometimes they will go out of their comfort zone, do stuff that they normally would not do, are not exactly comfortable. Some of these things can be relatively mild, nothing to raise eyebrows about, but some of them, brothers and sisters, can be. You would be mortified if you found out that your child did something like this. The only way to do that, to some control, is to understand their influences. What are they thinking? What feed the Quran? فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَى طَعَامِهِ. Let man be careful about what he consumes. And Imam Sadiq said that this is about the influences that you take, what you hear, what you read, and be careful about them, because if you do not take care with this, then they begin to influence them. Remember, to as early on as you can, because like trees, the young saplings are more easily. When they become older, it's almost impossible after a certain age to change them at all. In their ideas, in their thinking, and then of course you're tearing your hair out and saying, I don't know how this happened. Community workers are consulted, to try to find solutions. And I'll be honest with you, there are no easy solutions. It's a hopeless. Solutions. The solutions lie in early and proper parenting. Right? If you do those things, more things in place. One of the things somebody asked, I don't know where the questions show on this, because somebody asked, one of the things I found, and I tell parents a lot, because I've taught madrasa in this one particular thing between kids in their late teens and then early 20s, and that is from day one, as soon as they are able to understand the love and regard for Allah, right? Talk about it. Talk about when there's wilada, wafat, go to the mosque. Take your kids with you. Sit in the room, and toddler rooms at Stanmore. Sit there, even if they're doing nothing. Just do that. Take them if you can afford it, and experience the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Why? What I found time and time again is this way. When they're older, they may deviate depending on other circumstances. Maybe they fell in with a bad lot, a bad friend, bad influences, and they may stray. But the one hook that you can use when you are talking with them is the love of Allah. That will bring that guilt factor that says, if the Imam, if Rasulullah was to see this here in you, and if you were to meet her, could you meet her in this state that you are in now, the way you are living now? That's powerful to bring kids back, provided it has been put in deeply right from the beginning. Provided that this kid says, when I hear the name of Imam Hussein, I'm going to come to that majlis. Then he may have other actions that are not correct. But if you don't have that at all, then it's very difficult to find a hook by which to talk religion with them. And it's very difficult. In all cases, I tell people and parents, do never, ever lose hope. There are people around. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is never far for somebody who asks. So it is possible, but harder. So with this, I bring my talk to an end. There are many other strategies and many other things we can talk about, but to me, good as well. I hope that you take away some ideas from this that you can put into play, either for your grandkids even, inshallah wa ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So now I found the place where these questions are. So there are 3 questions. One, course we posted. Yes, I'm really sorry about the sound. I don't know. I did the seminar last year. Same problem. But her standby has written that yes, the course is being recorded and obviously available on the ALI servers, inshallah. Second, we cannot understand the same thing, that it will be recorded, inshallah. It has been recorded and you can follow it. The only other question I see here is, what is the best way to discipline kids in the West when they do not obey? So kids is a whole different study in itself, and in fact there's a conventional you can read up on, and you should get books and read up on what. Remember that by nature the kids are not cruel, trying to life a difficult problem somewhere, and together you need to try to find out where the problem is. Oftentimes kids will what they do is not, that is just their way of making a statement. The problem lies elsewhere. Is it because a child will suddenly pretend to be ill, pretend to have great problems at school, say suddenly that they, I'm an optometrist, so and the parent rushes them in and I examine them and their eyes are perfectly fine. But then I call the parent to the, I say to them, the usually you find that, yes, when the kid comes home from school, they're with neighbors, the parents at work all the time. This is just a way of saying, look, I need some time, and I know if I make up a serious case, you guys are going to give me some attention. Timing, timing is very important in understanding whether your kid needs discipline. For example, I don't know who have who are around the age of say 11 to 14. You may say, and I've heard it tons of times, somebody kid is najrai gyo che, he's changed completely. He didn't used to be like this. He's been some badly wrong, going through puberty, and you will find very often that suddenly your son will harsh, right, at you. If you respond at that time, you are making a mistake, because called testosterone spikes. So when the testosterone levels are high in a young man's body, his attitude is one where the least thing will cause this kind of hostile response. The best way to say to him, I don't think this is the right time to talk about this, because we're not going to end up saying nice things to each other. But I promise we will talk about it. When it comes to nighttime, 9 times out of 10, the kid will come back and first of all apologize, to say, I'm sorry, because are back to normal. Brain is again functioning properly, and you're able to have a conversation. So you need to learn these things. When it comes to discipline, do not say things that you cannot do. Right? I told my son, if you come home after midnight again, right, I won't let you in the house. So 3 days later, he came again after midnight. So this guy didn't let him into the house. So now he's phoning me at Fajr. Now he said, I've already taken the car out and started looking for him. I phoned his friends. Nobody knows where he is, right? Disciplined, or you threatened something that just wasn't going to work, right? You have to threats or disciplining fair. As the best way, or one of the ways at least, not the best way, maybe there are other ways, is by denying privilege. This is what is being taught, that taking away privilege is better direct. You're grounded, so you take away the privilege to go out freely. You might change the password, the mobile phone, or some privilege for a couple of days, or even say to the son, do you what you've done? Do you agree that this requires some sort of action? And he says yes. So you say, do you think it would be fair that you've got to give up or sacrifice because of what you've done? You might try that. And there are, you can read up about them and so on, or maybe we can devote a section to that one day. All at hand at the minute. I think there was one more question I saw. Come up. I saw the question, but it doesn't show in the queue. Anybody want to repeat their question? One last question or two, maybe? Doesn't in there. Whoa. While living in the West. Webinar options, questions. Okay, done. Flashed up very, very fast. Um, and I saw somebody saying Uber is best. I or something. While living in the West, many schools offer music classes. Oh, Akil is here, mashallah, salam Akil. Yeah, how do you speak in terms they understand? Okay, let's leave it at these two questions, and then I'll ask you when to probably put the next one. So, one of them was that in the West, we are told that our kids to learn music. Now, this is depends. I mean, in England so far, opt out if you want. In the fiqh terms, participating in music classes, etc., is not in itself not allowed. However, learning an instrument for the sake of anything, learning any skill is one thing. But okay, I understand about Uber now. But this business of music, really, Akil, it needs a little bit of thought. You see, there used to be a time growing up, growing up, that you never dreamt of asking the question, is music allowed or not allowed? Then suddenly an era came in the 90s when no, certain kinds of music were allowed. So there was a difference between music al-muharrama. So the Sayyid Masalan would say that that which is appropriate to be heard in a place of immoral gathering, disco or night, like that is haram. That which is not appropriate to be heard in such places is allowed. Now, what started then, a kind of game of how far you could stretch the rubber band, and so a little bit of music here, and point where some of the things that you hear now in the name of nasheeds, quite frankly, you got to ask yourself, the words on and sacred lyrics, whatever, the music is absolutely the same stuff you would hear in a regular song. And big question here in that if you open the door, how wide do you open the door behind your son or daughter afterwards? And that is a conversation you need to have with kids. And you need to say to them, look, Sharia allows things the Sharia does not allow. Will you be able to understand the difference? You see? So, per se, instrument for the sake of it as a pure science is not a problem. But then again, like everything else, you have to watch what is happening. If somebody can just again, Hasnan Bhai, if you can, aha, I found it. You guys are all you're putting.
Okay, here is the question.
Yeah.
Can I read for you the question?
Yes. Is it coming under chat?
Okay, let me read for you. Now that my daughter are 20 and 23 years old, I
Yes.
noticed that many of their friends were gay at high school. Now they have strong feeling about homosexuality is not their fault and it should be acknowledged. How should I minimize their effect on my daughters?
So, hello? Right.
Yes,
So many of their friends were gay at high school. Things about homosexuality, that it is not their fault. From what I understand from this question, it doesn't mean that they don't themselves homosexual. However, towards people who are homosexual is one of ambivalence, that these are not bad people or whatever. To view the maraja of Madhab Ahlul Bayt is that, look, there is a difference between an act of, so it is only at certain times that the act and the person can be thought of as one. But in terms of really, homosexuality is a loaded word at the moment, but there is no difference between homosexuality or adultery, which sometimes is forgotten, a much more acceptable form of transgression. Adultery and homosexuality, all this. The person and the act is wrong, and the act is one which we can never be comfortable with. The person who perpetrates, but we can never condone the act they do. There is a difference in that too. So if they say that it is not their fault, it remains to be proven, that assertion. It is not something that it requires proof as to what the source of a person's individual homosexual tendencies, and that is something that, you know, there's plenty of person is gay. It doesn't mean that that particular clear is that we can never condone the act they do. And also, even in Sharia terms, by the way, Sharia, if they do something that they're doing out of public eye, not in the public space, then that business between them. What they do in the public arena is something that Sharia then would turn its attention on. And this is something that we need to keep in mind. The one thing is for sure, and this is something that you need to teach your kids, teach ourselves, affectionate to people. When we become fond of people, when we say, you know what, I like this person, that like and dislike must be in godly terms. It is because they are doing something and to do something that God dislikes. For that reason, we should dislike them. And doing something God likes them. So, for example, we say to, you know, Imam Islam been told that you don't tell Imam Hussein al-Islam that I love you. What is more interesting is you say to him, I love the one who loves you. One who loves you. Inni silmun liman salamakum wa aduwan liman adakum. It's very interesting, instructive how it's phrased. It's about, if someone loves you, then I love them because I love you and one who loves you. If someone doesn't have regard for that which you have think is important, then I can the kind of criterion, then that is also something that is important. I can now ask questions. Yeah, so I'll just go up. I'm just going in reverse order. How do you understand as opposed to the way we have an understanding of things? Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, it depends on certain ages, the kids will make you sweat because you won't know how to answer them. And you will have to, rather than off completely and send him to a Maulana Bicharo, you can actually say, fine, now I understand you've said that I need to think about these things. And if you don't mind, I'll come back to you. And then you quietly somebody else and discuss them, so that you come across as somebody who is able to have that discussion with your kids. Nowadays, there's a lot of emphasis on your question. Nowadays, there is a lot of emphasis on materialism in dunya. You need to, again, show the child, not dunya. Look how we make decisions in our own lives for akhirah. We give priority, we make sacrifices for akhirah, give up things here so we can have akhirah. That would be something that shows them that it is important, and expecting them to learn. Music for application, I spoke a bit about. What ways to convince your kids to pray? Again, everything depends on, right from in your house where you all pray together. Dad leads their two kids, somebody recites dua, recites adhan, the whole family participates in at least one prayer, say the night prayer. Is at home. The child what is important to pray. If they're older and now they are not praying, or they're saying, I prayed in my room, or room to 7 rakats of namaz and are down there 3 minutes later, they've prayed at all, and you still concerned, please, first of all, think of a strategy. Do not jump in with both feet and start shouting. This problem is not going to retreat, and mom and dad, or think about a strategy more than just screaming. Once you've got a strategy, then you approach the child, then you teach them about how, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given together the flavors that Allah has given in their life, whether it's things like the fact that you can see, you can walk, you can think, and give them examples, like maybe take pictures to them of people who cannot see, people who cannot walk, and show them, say, you are not this. These are Allah's favors to you. Now, when you stand up to be grateful to Him and to thank Him, do you mind? Do you not think that the 10-15 minutes that Allah demands or asks from you a day, that you should give, thankfully, and so on. So always, when it comes to discipline, don't get horrified and the first time. It may not be long-term useful, and it may even be harmful to the kind of connection between you and your child is one that is based on reason, based on love, based on the fact that you care about what happens to them, coming from a position of love and regard, not one of frustration. The first one will work. The second one is just actually ruin matters. What if I messed up the first 7 years? There is always hope. There is always hope, because you can actually, you might be surprised. Your child is a little, say sorry to them and say to them, look, you know what? When you were growing up, I didn't know what I know now. And I know that I do the job mad. And I'm really sorry about that. But I'm willing to make it up to you. And I'm willing for us to have better, fruitful. Start off by listening to them, by talking with them, and it's always possible. I mean, at any age, some sort of result, even though it may not be 100%, it's better than not doing anything or giving up. Lots of messages about the quality, again, of transmission. I'm really sorry about that, but it is recorded. And I think that is it. I think, yep, I'm right at the top. I can't see any more questions, inshallah ta'ala. Again, thank you very much. Some of you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to bring up our kids in a way that would please Allah wa ta'ala, that will bring children into the society who are lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam.